Hello and welcome everybody to this week's episode of Talking Skritt, the Guild Wars 2 podcast brought to you by Game Breaker Nation. I'm your host, Jonathan, better known as Deo around Yaks Bend. We have a fantastic show for you today. More clarity from PAX South. What else can we squeeze from that information? And speculation of where we think the story might go. But first, let me introduce you to my co-hosts. First up, he was one of many thorns in the side of Scarlet's plans. Say hello to Jim.
Hi, everybody. Brace yourselves. The puns are coming.
Yes! He is missing chest runs in the Silverwaste to join us today. Say hello to Aaron.
Yeah, so apparently I didn't help kill Scarlet at all. That was just
one of many.
All I do is open boxes, apparently. So
you're very good at it, though.
No applause for me.
You're the best box opener we have.
I'll say, if you have been in the guild of recent, I think people will agree all you do is open a box in the Silverwaste.
Come on, man.
Nothing wrong with that. And last but not least, beamed to us from a galaxy far, far away, all the way from Deep Space Vine. Say hello to Roy.
Hello, everybody. Yes, Deo, Deep Space Vine. We warned you, these are not going to get better today.
To be fair, I had to come up with Jim's and Aaron's just so I could do Roy's. Enjoy. But
yes,
let's get right into it. There has been a lot of new, clarification from the PAX South announcement. Some right afterwards with a lot of the interviews they did, Colin Johanson mostly. But throughout the week, we've been getting other little bits of information, and we've tried to compile a new list for you of what we now know. And first up, we'll talk about the mastery system. Apparently, in the ZAM article, it will function similar to the War v World rank point system. Does anybody want to expand a little bit on what they were able to tell us in the article? I know it's usually not much, and it's more of down the road they will, but...
Go ahead, Jim. You were first.
Okay. I'm honestly just kind of happy that they're giving a similar system. I'm still kind of worried that people might, since they didn't really say, I'm kind of worried that people might get stuck with leveling not the hang glider effectively, which, I mean, I'm assuming you're going to be able to return the points on an easy basis, since that's kind of one of the things they've been going with character progression, is that once you unlock the points, you have access to them. So my only issue is, like, if the hang glider is such a big deal that you're suddenly going to be able to keep yourself from, like, lock yourself out of using the hang glider. So
yeah, I mean, is that anybody else's worry? That, I mean, that is the caveat with the World v World ranking system, is those points you allocate are character specific. Will they go a route where there is a refund option for a price, or for free, or maybe even using obsidian shards or something we have plenty of?
Yeah, if it's a PvE system, which it is, I'd be willing to bet that you're going to be able to refund your points at any point outside combat, because people would just be too salty about it if they couldn't. Like, people are already salty about the WW system. It's better now because it's character-based, so you can kind of explore different possibilities through each character, but I think it's much more in their interest to make this one refundable. What they also say in the article is it's going to be a similar, like, basically what Colin says is it's an apt comparison to compare it to the WW system, but they are not going to be the same system. It's going to be similar, but probably a lot more in-depth and have a lot more functionality than the WW one is. And he also goes on to say in the article that they might take things that they've expounded on in the mastery system and add it into the WW rank point system. So I'm really excited about that.
So does that mean we have hang gliders in War v World? Is that, or are you confirming that right now? Huh?
Maybe on the new, it's impossible on the new Borderlands map. Why not?
To be honest, that would actually be really cool to add, kind of a Z-axis, or more so of a Z-axis to World v World combat. I think that would actually be a great idea.
Well, I mean, have you seen that the shot in the trailer where it shows the new Borderlands map and there's this big cube and it's got, steps going up here. There's players on the top. There's players on the bottom. There's going to be a lot of verticality to that map, so I could definitely see hang gliding coming into play on it.
Well, and I mean, definitely, if they hinted at, I think they said that there was an Earth one, and then they hinted at like a Fire one. If they're going by elements or bands, I mean, they still need wind. So I just see Malthana shaking his head at it, but I loved it. I mean, it could very well use this hang gliding system. And wouldn't that be great if? Now, is the new Borderlands? Have they talked about? Is it going to be like Edge of the Mist where you can fall off, or is it kind of enclosed? Because
I don't think
hang glide off an edge.
I don't know if we've been shown one way or the other.
They haven't specified.
Yeah.
It's an area in the mist, so theoretically, but they could just surround it by cliffs like the original Borderlands.
And kind of speaking of hang gliders, they also, in another article from Eurogamer, they said how these are region-based ability lines, and you will only really find them in particular regions. So I know last week we were talking about hang gliders possibly being used in the rest of the world. Will this be, like, what other ones do you want to see in maybe the original zones?
Yeah, so basically what this Eurogamer article, they did an interview with Colin Johanson, and basically what he told them was that you're going to have, and this was also from a Gamebreaker interview with Colin Johanson as well, that was done by Troy Blackburn, and in both of those interviews he said that the mastery system is going to apply to not only the new zones, but all the zones throughout Tyria that we already have. And then what he basically expounded upon in this Eurogamer article is that the ability lines in this mastery system, similar to the lines we have in the WW system, where it's like siege mastery and guard killing mastery and stuff like that, those are instead going to be based on regions of the map. So you'd have probably like Ascalonian mastery or Crichton mastery, things like that. I doubt they do it zone by zone because that would kind of be ridiculous. But I think that's what that means, is we're going to be seeing mastery lines based on areas of the world. So, for Maguma, we obviously have the hang gliding possibility. They also gave us the language thing that we could potentially have going on with the ancient cultures of that area. But what I'd like to see, especially with Ascalon, is like maybe we start exploring ancient Ascalonian, culture with this mastery system. Maybe we can kill ghosts more efficiently, do more things to get rid of the ghosts, and that could tie into the storyline of pushing the ghost back. Because remember, that's still Ritlock's main goal, is to get rid of the ghosts in Ascalon. That's why he went into the mist in the first place. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to see the mastery system tying into all the zones, not just the new ones, because if it was just the new ones, it would make it seem like a separate part of the game. It wouldn't make the game feel integrated. And what they're going for is to build on everything they've put into the game already. So integrating this feature into the areas that are already in the game definitely does that very well. I was impressed by the comment that they're going to be doing that.
I was honestly just thinking about it, and the article also said about the mastery system that they definitely will not, it will be PvE only, and World v World is technically, I know people like say, yeah, World v World is PvP, and then people get flustered, but the mastery system won't be showing up in PvP. However, I'm hoping that they do consider putting the hang gliders in, if only as like a baseline thing, and you only have, and everybody has like a certain level of the upgrades for it, for whatever it is, because I really do think that would be a great idea to add more tactical maneuverability for different groups. But as for adding mastery progression throughout the entire game, I'm really happy to see that as well, because that means that, say you really don't like running around in the Heart of Maguma. I mean, once you've done the story, you're done with it, you don't like the events there, you want to go somewhere else, well, guess what? You can still do, the new character progression wherever you feel like, because they've expanded it to the entire map. So, I mean, I know people that don't like Silver Waste or Dry Top, so...
And I mean, there's definitely... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one question I have about this is they say that the mastery system will be tied to map completion, and I'm wondering if those of us who have, I mean, surely those of us who have done map completion will get those mastery points for the other areas of the world retroactively, right?
I would imagine.
Better.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine if it was like...
You guys have done it 6 and 8 times. I mean...
Yeah, I'd imagine if it was like something like you clear, like it's going to check to see like you cleared Silver Waste or something. Here's 1 point, or you cleared Kessex, 1 point.
Like when they did the feature pack, when they did the things with the dyes and with the armor skins that you had unlocked already. So it would just all, like when you went into the Heart of the Mist for PvP, if you had a bunch of PvP skins unlocked already, you went in and you just had that giant scroll of items getting added to your inventory. That's probably what you're going to end up having. I mean, heck, Aaron, how many times have you map completed? All of your characters?
I have 8 gold star. I have 8 characters and 8 gold stars.
Oh, put that on the wall.
Someone give me a sticker. I want to.
I'm at like 78% on my main, and I haven't even taken the time to finish that. I don't know if I ever will.
And I mean, a bit of sad news is we're not going to get any spears on land. How do you guys feel about that? Supposedly from, I believe it was Wooden Potatoes video.
Yeah, what a lot of people were thinking was that shot in the trailer where you see Ritlock beating up a Mordrum with a long pole-like object. A lot of people were like, oh, that's a spear. And I was like, me? When I saw that, I was like, oh, the Revenant will be getting staff in a melee capacity. Like, that was just my automatic reaction. But, like, nobody else had that reaction. Everyone was like, oh, it's a spear. And then they came out and said, no, it's not a spear.
That after the show and after everything settled down last week, where it's like, that doesn't look like a spear. It was really, I thought it was a trident when I first saw it, but you guys pointed out that's a staff. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought it looked a lot more like a staff. Yeah, because there's got to be, everyone wants spear on land.
Star.
Wow. I was saying right on your forehead there.
You get a gold star.
Thank you, Ix. Thank you. I've been waiting for someone to commend me for my 8 map completions, and it's finally happened.
To be honest, going on the spear thing, I would have liked it because it can help. Having polearms would help explore a lot of themes that would be open to a lot of characters. It could have worked. If they do something with underwater combat, that would be nice, because there are points in time where underwater combat feels a little... Like, I've noticed it with a couple of classes, it just feels weird. Like, it feels like the skills don't really work well, and that they don't feel like they have real coherent combos with themselves or with any utility skills you have access to underwater, because as we all know, you have a much more limited selection when you're underwater. But with adding the new specializations and everybody gets, a weapon they didn't have access to before, I think that's going to kind of alleviate, some of the people wanting to see new weapon types in general. So there's at least that.
Is anybody? I kind of have a question for everybody. Is everybody okay with just one specialization? Because there was a big discussion that we had in the guild afterwards that when people heard specializations, like, oh, there's going to be 2 or 3 different specializations per class or per profession. And I was like, my personal thing was, no, they're only going to give us one, at least to start with. It's a good thing. It's a good system to expand on, but I never expected more than one.
Yeah, and for someone who's not aware of the specializations or hasn't been around for the basically previous week, specializations are going to be the new way to kind of progress your characters. That you will be allowed to go into particular fields, and upon the expansion's release, it's one per profession, which we know about the druid and the rangers. It's a druid and they get a staff. We don't know the name of the necromancer, but Colin Johanson did say it was going to be using a greatsword. But it was a little there wasn't really much information, and people, like we're saying, thought there would be multiple specializations. But he did confirm in later interviews that upon release of the expansion, there will only be one profession. It's just mostly the system to introduce it with and one specialization.
And going off of Roy's question, like, originally, I thought that there would be at least two per class, because at that point, if you get up to the end of it, you're like, hey, I'm a ranger, so I'm going to specialize to druid. But I think it was even and it's been through multiple questions, and even in the Game Breaker interview, Colin Johanson did mention that you lose access to some of the ranger stuff. So a ranger who decides to stay a ranger is different than a druid ranger. So they have access to unique things between each. So technically you do have two specializations, kind of. Like you have your base ranger and then you have the druid, and they each have their own unique stuff, and they also have overlap. So I think that makes it a lot more workable a system. I can understand where they went with that now, because that means they can put as much time as possible into the one specialization, making sure everything is balanced, and still have the base class there and still make things unique. So in the future, they can just explore different paths that aren't covered for that archetype as per that profession.
Now, does anybody think that this might be, this means we're on a path to dual professions at some level, and the problems they had in balancing two professions in Guild Wars 1 was a reason why we only went to the professions we had without adding the complexity. Are they going to do you guys? Do we think that we're going to be able to they're going to be able to handle the complexity of this new system and not lose track of it like they did in Guild Wars 1?
I definitely think with the new system, yes, because they can kind of feed it. Whereas it was a lot harder for Guild Wars 1 doing all the different combinations and then all the possibilities within there. Here it's like, yeah, you can be a druid, but that's just basically what seems like maybe a trait line. We're not 100% sure. They're taking away a couple things, but it's like, here's one weapon. It's not like, here's an arsenal of skills, and so I think it's going to be a lot more manageable.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, dual professions is never going to be a thing in Guild Wars 2, because it's just too much. They couldn't balance it. It's unbalanceable.
Totally insane that they even tried it, which was kind of amazing in and of itself. But as you add these layers of complexity on, you're getting really close at a certain level to having the same thing. And personally, I think they've got it. I think they'll control it a lot better, because you're only talking about 5 weapon skills and 5, a different set of utility skills. So it's not like you've got 8 different skills that can go through 10 different subsections. Which, I mean, if anybody goes and looks at Guild Wars 1, I was looking at it the other day. We were kind of bouncing around. I was like, wow, how did we ever manage this? As just as players, how to figure stuff out. I mean, I know there were the build wikis and all that, but
yeah, there were like 5 players in the game that figured all that crap out. The rest of us just went to the wiki that they compiled.
I mean,
for us.
I played my own build. I didn't look at anybody else's, and most of mine were pretty close. But I was always kind of like, wow, this, going back and forth. In one level, it's so much easier to deal with Guild Wars 2. But it's, like I said, my concern is I think they'll handle it okay. I just get a concern as complexity increases across the board like that, if they might lose track of it at some point.
Yeah, with the specializations, what I think we're going to see happen is So they're setting the system up so they can add specializations in the future. That being said, don't expect to see specializations be something that they just keep rolling out every feature pack. You expect 2 specializations per profession, maybe 3. After that, I don't see them really adding any more specializations to the professions because there has to be some sort of differentiation. There has to be some weapon types that this profession can't use that this one can.
Yeah.
That has to be a thing. They can't just be like, oh, and now since we've added the 10th specialization, everyone can use all the weapons. That doesn't make sense.
Not to mention with every specialization added, you're only adding at this point 9 additional classes to the game to balance. Whereas in Guild Wars 1, there was 8 base classes, and then factions had Assassin and Ritualist, and then Nightfall had Paragon and
there were
Dervish,
6
right?
classes.
6? Okay.
6 classes in Prophecy, so 10 in all.
So you had your 10 classes, and each of those could have the secondary of the other 9.
Yeah.
So there were 90 possible combinations there.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Yeah.
with
And
the 9
thousands.
here, you have the 9 classes in Guild Wars 2, you have 18 classes with the specialization. So you're only ever adding 9 to the pool as opposed to, if they added an 11th class to Guild Wars 1 right now, that's actually adding another 10 to the pool if you add 1 more class. So it's not something that would get away from them as quickly, I think. And if they do intend to add slowly and only have, 2, 3, maybe 4 specializations per profession, I think they'd be able to handle it at least a lot better than in Guild Wars 1 power creep.
Yeah, people are going to be clamoring for that second specialization, so expect to see that one, maybe later this year. Like, it's going to launch later this year, so maybe 2016 early.
Or like during a feature pack or something.
Yeah,
like when there's
April
content.
feature pack 2016 probably for the second specialization.
And that's
but-
not confirmed. That's just
Yeah.
speculation. That's
That's just off the top of my head speculation. But what I'm saying is don't hold your breath for numbers 3 and 4 because after they got the second one in, I think they're going to shift focus and just kind of leave that for a while. But since people will be clamoring for the second one, I think they'll introduce it fairly quickly.
Well, and to answer one of Chad's questions, basically, yes, they will be removing, or a ranger will not be able to use that staff. As far as the way I'm reading it, it's you have to specialize into that specialization because it's tied to that.
You have to specialize.
Which I'm guessing is more maybe like a healer supporty type thing. I'm just thinking like a druid, what they would kind of be, like maybe more snares but it is specific as it stands from what we are reading and what it is now. They could change it and down the road they could open it up, but what it looks like, it definitely is particular to each specialization. And I mean, I also wanted to go, Aaron, and you were saying, like, don't expect like 10 specializations and everybody gets to use the weapons. If they are taking them away from one another, couldn't they theoretically like, you're never going to have more than what the warrior has plus 1 or 2 depending on specializations.
But it's the ease of swapping that's the issue there. You can swap to your specialization, as long as you're out of combat, just swap into it. You can use that weapon now.
But I mean,
So,
oh, God.
I don't think we're going to get more than 4. I think 4 is the max we would ever get, and realistically, probably more like 3.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's just seeing all the weapons on one particular profession, it very much, like, you can have all the crafting disciplines on one profession. You can have one character and be fine in the game. You don't need multiple. It's just different
have to be like
flavors
drop
of that
the 30.
profession.
The what?
It ruins the profession identity. What was that, Jim?
I was just like Dea was saying something about how you can have all the crafting professions in one character, but you have to be willing to drop the 30 or 40 silver to make the one you want to craft with your active. But I'm kind of agreeing. Like, I honestly think that when you go to Druid, you're going to lose at least a weapon or 2 from Ranger. Like, a Druid might not be able to use
Like a sword and a dagger.
Yeah, like you can still use it because those are technically more refined bladed stuff. So, like, that's my guess on it. So you lose sword and dagger, but you still have
Probably
axe.
great sword too.
Yeah, you have your axe, your bows, and now your staff. So, I mean, I find it strange. Like, yes, we were talking about earlier. Like, what are they going to give warriors? Because warriors can use what? Everything but daggers and short bows.
And
I was gonna say, my guess is dagger or staff is what they would give warrior.
But like one of those things, I would expect, the warrior would have to lose something too, because like they're saying, is you lose access to something from your base class. So to kind of fit the thematic deal with that, I mean, they're probably going to have all new. They might even end up having all new weapon skills, or at least slightly changed weapon skills from the base class.
Yeah, I could see them adding some sort of class like brawler, maybe to warrior, and there maybe you lose all of your bladed weapons and you can only use blunt weapons, and so they add a staff.
Or maybe you lose two-handers and you like dual wield or something like that.
They could actually take away all the weapon, just give them barehanded fighting, because
Yeah, you get the one weapon that everybody has, but no one can use properly.
Yeah, that would require the implementation of entirely new weapon set, though. I could also see them doing the alternative and giving them, like, Kensai or something, and now you can only wield bladed weapons and they give them daggers.
And I see chat talking about there's a theory going around that it might just remove or change your F skill, which is your charge of attack for a warrior in that case. And I think we touched upon that with possibly elementalists and stuff. They can totally alter the F skills and make them either more or less non-existent, or depending on those different professions.
That was something that came up in Wooden Potato's specialization video from earlier in the week, where he said you lose your elements and you are just arcane attuned. And it's just raw magic as opposed to elemental magic. So that would be interesting as well.
Yeah, that'd be a really interesting flip.
All I want is for the thief specialization to be pirate. That's what I want.
You just want to actually have a reason to slot Runes of the Buccaneer, huh?
And dude, if they do pirate specialization for thief, I'm buying that pirate outfit off the gem store. I'm going.
You should already buy it. It's already amazing.
You and everybody else.
Really good armor set. I've wanted to buy it for a while.
I don't know. Like,
thief pirate.
I kind of want to believe the internet hype about the rogue, the thief-looking guy with the rifle. I would love to see a kind of sniper class or a sniper specialization for thief.
Exactly. You can sit in the crow's nest. Pirate. You can sit in the crow's nest. Sniper. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Yep. Because pirates are well known for being snipers.
Pirate.
I mean, and I think we're hitting upon this.
Pirates are well known for being outlaws, though. I have to hide out in the Maguma jungle.
Not all snipers are outlaws. What? I'm missing the line here.
The gold star is going to his head.
No, I was saying pirates are well known for being outlaws.
Take away that gold star. Uh-oh. Is it going to get taken away?
I did 8 map completions. You can't take it away.
They took his gold. Oh. Now, another thing I did was in the interview for Gamebreaker was that basically Colin had touched on the idea that they went specializations instead of race because they realized race wasn't going to give the player base an increased or a big enough change in play style. So my question then comes in: when do you think we get a race? Is that something that needs to be put into an expansion, or should they just dump it with an upgrade to the chapters? Living story update, say, oh, by the way, we're going to go in here and we're going to do this with this race, and you're going to be able to play that race.
Well, I think as long as it makes sense, but I mean, to focus more on the specializations. Like, I see some people in chat talking about, I just missed it. I believe Wolf was saying, it can't change the F skills for at least the Ranger because we see the pet. I think, who was it? Wooden Potatoes, and I liked his theory about it was, what if you do trait into Druid, it kind of makes your you don't have as much control over a pet because maybe you don't have that kind of attunement to beings, just nature, as a druid. So maybe it works like a minion master where it's not going to work. Just give me minion master AI better, please. That's all I want. But maybe you don't get that specialty like skill of the pet as a ranger. And
what was it? He basically said it was something like it would be a summon, where you summon animals effectively for a
temporary time, which I was like, that's almost like the guardian spirit weapons, which I'm not a fan of.
It could work, but it's kind of but I do agree with one of the things he did say in that video was that he didn't want to see professions losing their weaknesses. Like, he didn't want to see things being covered over by the specializations. Like, the Guardian is very much, you can do damage with the Guardian, you can tank with the Guardian. The Guardian, however, is very much about being tanky and supportive. You have a lot of things that buff allies regardless of whether or not you trade into them, and you have a lot of things that keep you alive regardless of whether you're going for a full damage build. So that's, I would like to see that stay, like the same overall theme of a profession to stick around in the specializations. So, for example, the sniper that I want to see, the thieves are very much about burst damage in short windows of time. I don't want to see, they're now the highest single target DPS in the game. They don't burst like anything, but they just, you'll die eventually because of them. But poor analogy, but that's I can totally agree with that.
And
I don't know what they want to do about the ranger pet thing. That's kind of a iffy issue.
I mean, to be fair, if they kind of ditch the ranger pets, I don't think people are going to be like, oh no, not the ranger pets. They only get in the way half the time. Like,
they only keep me from waypointing when I want.
I like my pets.
Well, I know a lot of rangers that are, or at least get yelled at in dungeons, that will be like,
don't know how they're not using them properly. I mean,
to be fair, I've had my pet just kind of go off in a random direction before, and I didn't tell it to attack, and I've also been attacking something, and it's just kind of chilling there. And I always have it in like that. I can't remember what the stance is.
Well, there's guard mode and passive mode.
I know. I've never changed it from guard mode. I've never changed it from guard mode. But
yeah, see, and that's the problem.
But there have been times where it's just sitting there next to me and it's not attacking something I attack.
Well, then you can click attack my target.
I know, but it's one of those things where it's like an AI issue where sometimes they'll just kind of go, I'm going to go this way. And they're, off. It's kind of like the target assist when you hit a skill and you're the system, like you have the system set up to, we'll pick the closest appropriate target for you. And, it doesn't pick something that's 10 feet in front of you. It picks something over that way.
Yeah. And it's generally an ambient.
An ambient or something you didn't want to aggro in the first place.
Yeah.
The annoying thing.
Second cooldown, and we took out an ambient. Yes.
Yeah, the annoying thing is when I want to waypoint somewhere, but my pet's fighting something, so I'm in combat, so I can't.
Yeah.
And I gotta go find him.
But I mean, talking about the other possible specializations, which I personally was surprised that this was news, and I think a lot of us were, at least when we were talking about it earlier, that they did confirm that the Revenant will have a specialization as well, just one, of course, with the release, which I personally just assumed, but I mean, why do you think the audience believed that there possibly might not have been?
I said it before the show.
The internet?
Yeah, I said it before the show, and I'll say it again. It's because there's been so much BS that's gone on in the past couple years with just AAA games publishers in general that we can't trust to get good features in games anymore. It's not something we can do anymore. We just have to assume that this game is going to be crappy off the bat. That's what we have to assume now because there's so much BS in the games industry. There, I'm done.
And that means this with a little t, not capital T, so you're not specifically pointing at Guild Wars 2 and saying that.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, yeah, no, ArenaNet's been great. But based on the industry as a whole, like gamers cannot trust companies anymore to give like features that would make sense in their games.
Yeah, I've seen issues. Like I totally understand where you're coming from with that. But as for the specialization for the Revenant, I know a lot of people are thinking that this might be our ritualist-like specialization, since people are.
We were talking about the Revenant after the again during the show last time and after the show, and what we've really come to agree on is that it's a mix of the ritualist and what was the other one, Dale? I can't remember. Dervish. It's kind of like a mix of both of those.
And kind of warrior because it wears heavy armor.
Yeah, but that mix really does bring together a really interesting combination, because you could, as a dervish, become the avatar of a god. Well, you're basically doing the same thing but picking a hero out of legend, whether it's Malix or Jalis. Any of those, you're getting an opportunity to be, and you're going to pick up a skill set based on those characters. So, that makes a lot of sense to me. It's a really nice combination, really nice balance between the two of them.
And I mean, I think we were hitting upon this point of ArenaNet, for a lot of stuff that people complain about. And, of course, for the people watching the VOD, this is the part you want to link to, that we're fanboys and all that stuff. But ArenaNet does a lot of things right. And I think we linked earlier Troy's interview with Colin Johanson, and it goes back to that previously they said, we're not going to do another profession. We're going to probably stick to opening up more weapons, and just races are more likely.
Races. And that was a quote from like pre-launch.
Yeah, sorry. And Colin Johanson, of course, laughs and he says, "Yeah, I guess I'm guilty of that because I think he was deliberately the one that said it." And they said they looked at it and there was more playability and fun in putting in a new profession rather than a new race.
Right.
Which I honestly felt was a great answer, and they did. At least they're looking at it and they're not like, well, we promised this, we can't, like, our minds are set. They're willing to change their minds. So definitely,
absolutely, yeah. And like I said, that was an interesting response to the question, because it makes more sense to add races. It doesn't, look at the hoops they had to jump through to make this work. Look at it from a programmer side of point of view. A whole other race they could drop in, everything would be the same across the board as far as professions go. But let's add professions. What do we have to do? Well, we've now got to have a whole other skill tree. We've got to add in, all this other stuff to make this. Everything. If you look at the complexity of the two different choices that they had to make on that, my money would have been with races every single time.
Not to mention the animations for the graphics side of things, yeah. And
everything. I mean, if just doing what they're doing is totally against what I would have expected a game company to do.
Not to mention, when did Ritlock go into the mist? Which episode was that?
Episode 4?
Yeah.
Dragon's Reach Part 1.
Yeah.
Episode 3.
So that means that he spent over half of Season 2 of The Living Story prepping for the fact that they had a Revenant coming. So it was one of those things where they had to have everything, and even like they wanted to have a story basis. They didn't just kind of want to pull this out of nowhere and boom, here, have a new profession. So
and that was set up so early, so they had that in the plans from the start. Mm-hmm. From the start of Season 2, and the length of time they've taken on this must be kind of out there. And so those people that added up noses at ArenaNet and said, well, they've got 300 people there working, and we know it takes X, Y, and Z to do a season, and they've got two teams running that. What's the other people doing? Well, there's your answer. Obviously, like everybody was pointing out, they were working on the expansion.
Well, to be fair, I don't think we know how their resources are allocated or anything like that.
Well, they've made statements along the way where you could actually kind of suss out at least a minimum number of people, plus or minus, so much, because they would say it would take a team. They had one team do this, and they had one team do that, and then they told you somewhere along the line about what a team size was. It was kind of interesting to watch it come out on the forums. The whole thing, all I could tell when we responded to those was that's not what they said they're doing. So, I kind of find it interesting that they've had this in the plans for long enough that it was fairly obvious if you thought about it that they were going to be doing it, but at the same time they were still saying they weren't going to do it or try not to. And it still comes down to me really wondering if, and we'll never know the answer now, is if they had thrown more assets into the living story, if they could have done what they wanted to with the living story, rather than splitting things out and making this, kind of splitting their assets. So they had, they had the backup of the backup of the capability of an expansion. If they had gone all in on the story, what we would have gotten.
I think we would have gotten the same thing, just incrementally. They could, all the things they've announced with this expansion, they could have totally introduced with Living Story. They just decided an expansion would be better. It was probably a decision by NCSoft, a financial decision. I think if Arena had their way, they probably would have gone the Living Story route with it. But
I mean, someone's saying in chat, get rid of the classes and a pool of massive skills. Done.
Yeah, that's a terrible idea.
Go back to Guild Wars 1 and how.
Actually, yeah, there's that, but I kind of like if they use the idea that PoE had. Yeah,
the tree, like the branching out tree.
Circular tree, so that if you wanted to have, you would start over here as a ranger, but then if you wanted something on the tree, you had to work your way around to get that set of skills that's on the other side of the wheel.
So what you're saying is that in Path of Exile you had access to literally everything, but you only had a finite number of
but you had to make your way to it.
Over there. Okay.
So you basically had to train yourself. Like if you wanted to be a magic using ranger, literally throw fireballs, you had to go, you would have to work your way around through a couple different skill sets to get to the magic side, and then you could focus on the fireball part. I mean, it's a really interesting skill wheel if you ever look at it.
It doesn't work with.
Yeah. Sorry.
It doesn't work with Guild Wars 2's skill allocation system though, because you can earn skill points infinitely in Guild Wars 2, so you could just have all the skills on your one character.
Yeah, it would take a completely different. It would take a complete revamp of skills and how it would work, but. It'd be really, I'd like to see a game based on that was an MMO rather than, a Diablo 3 remake.
I don't know. I kind of like the whole class identity thing. Like, I'm this class. This is how I play. I kind of like that. I mean, I suppose with a system like that, you can decide for yourself, but
right, it gives the player a lot of choices, and it takes time. Don't think that it's an easy task to start being a magic user while you're a ranger or whatever's on the opposite side of the wheel. I'd never played that in depth, but you could do it. It would be a doable thing.
It's
yeah, I was not a too big of a fan of Path of Exiles just because, like what Aaron's saying, it loses that identity. You were basically picking the character, being like, oh, I want to look like that female or that male, or because eventually, like you're saying, you could be anything. Which, in that case, I'd just be like, give me one thing and a character creator, please. Like that would be.
Plus,
not to.
Go ahead, Jim.
Not to mention that the whole thing with, what Aaron mentioned about class identity is it actually has a psychological thing of helping you figure out what the heck it is you're going to gear with. Because having, literally access to everything means all of the gear could be good to you as long as you spend your skills right. At least with just the baseline abilities of a given profession, you have a better idea of, oh, hey, if I get more power, it'll be better for me. If I, have, like, warriors are a lot of melee, so generally speaking, you want at least a little bit of power and toughness and vitality, just in case. I mean, there is going to be something you can't dodge eventually, and if you're going full glass cannon, you might not make it out of that one hit that you get hit with, because especially with all the mechanics they've been adding to basically counter the straight-up berserker meta, what with, tough bark on the Mordrim husks and such. But going off of that, it just, Guardians always have a condition. You always have burning on every third or fifth hit, depending on how you trait. So condition damage will never really be lost on a Guardian unless you somehow pick a way to never actually hit an enemy, and I don't think anybody has that. But so.
Well, I mean, we're talking about like the skills and stuff. Let's talk about another thing that they announced that wasn't even mentioned at PAX South was when Heart of Thorns releases, they're going to do a new trait revamp. Now this was on the forums. They really didn't go into it that much, but they just were saying that while they're addressing all these other systems, they're gonna look back at the systems they currently have. And so people are wondering, is this the change of like trait acquisition, which I think a lot of people dislike that new system they implemented. I mean, how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, mixed. I have a mixed, I'm kind of like, I've got mixed emotions on it, because my problem is that the community wanted the Guild Wars, there were so many community wanting the Guild Wars 1 search out your skills system that we had in Guild Wars 1. You could buy you could buy certain skills with your skill points and gold, but the really good skills, you had to go out and cap them. So when they put that system into Guild Wars 2, I think they overdid it maybe a little bit. They shouldn't do it for every single skill. Just do it for the elites. But, to me, it was the community asked for this kind of a gameplay situation, and they got it. Now they don't like it. Okay, fix it, make it better. But with this game in particular, you have to be careful what you ask for, because it's a curse and a blessing. Because it seems like if you do get what you want, a lot of times it's not exactly what you expected, and it works against you.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, I think if it was a system that they would have had time to implement and it was at launch, I think a lot of people would have been so resistant against it. But I think they were trying to seriously capture that skill hunter aspect of Guild Wars 1, which was like, go find this particular person who has the skill. Like, he's going to beat you up with the skill you're trying to get. And then you capture it, and you're like, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to rain this skill all over your allies. And, it's... In this one, it's just a generic, like, map completion or go kill this specific one. If they would have had more time, I would have liked to have seen more of a Guild Wars 1 system where it was like, hey, there's this world boss or this ranger-type boss that's using that ranger trait against you, and then you acquire it that way. So... And it would go back to guilds being more useful. It's like, I can never find a time to go here and do this. It's like, well, grab a group of your guildies instead of waiting for the champ train or the world boss train, or like it could be guildies helping one another out. Be like, I need to go to him, and I'll help you with so and so. And I mean, what do you guys think about a better implementation of that original system?
They could definitely add in the skill hunting system from Guild Wars 1. I had a lot of fun with that. Those were some of the first titles I maxed out in Guild Wars 1, just going around and finding all the bosses and capping skills. That was great. So as far as elite skills go, that would be awesome to see in Heart of Thorns release. They could even apply it retroactively to the other elite skills, since they're already applying the mastery system retroactively to zones. It would simply be, if you already have the skills, of course, you get the skills. You don't have to go re-unlock them again. But for anyone who's coming into the game now, you need to go kill a boss or do something like that to unlock these elite skills. They could even add new bosses in specifically geared around these elite skills, like you said, so they could use the ability, and so you could really see that you're capturing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to lie, I kind of enjoy the trait hunting a little bit. I've used it since they locked your personal story in between every 10 levels, so I blitz through my personal story to be like, I don't know, for example, level 23, and then I'm like, okay, I have 7 levels to go, I need to level. So, I may as well just go hunt for traits, because you can unlock them beforehand. I know traits unlock at level 31 or some such, but it was kind of nice to have a kind of target to go for, as opposed to just roaming around. I like being able to roam around. I enjoy that you can be rewarded for just randomly running around. I mean, how many times have we gone down to Ore, run around for 3 hours, and looked at each other and be like, why are we in Ore? Oh, wait, an event! And then, another 2 hours later. But having that goal is kind of interesting. So I kind of like it. If it was a simplified system, I would still probably like it. I never really got around to unlocking elite skills in Guild Wars 1 because, like I've said before, I'm not too particularly versed, though I own the game. It would still be interesting to do, to have some kind of skill hunting system. I think that's a good idea.
I mean, it's just, I think it's just too many skills they got to search, and they don't, there's no gameplay towards it. It feels more like Pokemon without the Pokemon fights. That's basically what it is. You just go kill something and get the skill. At least with the old Guild Wars 1 system, at least you fought against the skill and won and feel like you were getting the reward for beating that skill in its own system.
Yeah, I mean, it's like for one of the temple ones, it's like fight Lissa or defend it. And then, like, for a ranger, you get a trait. It's like, what? Why does she have this trait?
Yeah, this trait, yeah.
Like, did she get the dual profession? Because that's
the one for marksmanship, the power trait line for rangers, read the wind, where your longbow shots do more damage and they travel at twice the speed. Yeah, you get that from fighting the champion risen wizard on the steps of all the way up to the gates of Ara. So I totally see. It's like, hey, yeah, this champion wizard has a master bowman, has a grandmaster bowman trait.
Well, he uses dragon magic to make the gravity non-existent, so the arrows can fly better, right? Right?
Yeah.
Because dragon magic.
Yeah. That's Aaron angrily shakes his head at me. Don't blame me, blame dragon magic. That's all I'm going to say. But I mean, another thing that they haven't talked about during PAX was basically AI. I mean, they talked about like harder, more challenging boss fights, but what might make us more hopeful is a while back there was a contract given out to a particular person that was focused on AI and all that stuff. After PAX South announcement, he tweeted out and said that he can officially say that he is now working with and on the expansion. Like, I don't know if he's officially hired by them or not. Do you guys want to talk a little bit more about like what he basically is involved with?
Yeah, Intrinsic Algorithm is the name of the company. I'm losing track of the gentleman's name right now because I lost it when I was having startup show problems. Give me a couple minutes, I'll find it. But they were put up. They were contracted back in April of 2014 to work on the AI in a consulting manner for Guild Wars 2. It wasn't hush hush, but it took 8 or 9 months for the community to pick up the fact that this group had actually been hired to consult. And the gentleman's name is David Mark. that is the president and lead designer of this game of this company. They've actually got their own game coming out. We all kind of looked at it and went, "Oh," but it's a airline. It's an airline simulator for traffic control. So yeah, to me, I can see.
Game.
Well, being that I play Elite Dangerous and kind of have an interest in flight and stuff, it's kind of sounding cool to me, but it's a very niche kind of game. So, anyways, what do these guys do? They basically are trying to find problems with games and with the AI and try to figure out how can they make it better. It's like everything is algorithm based for them, so curves and the way things act in a certain point on a curve is how they balance out their AI issues. They have a really excuse me, they have a really interesting area on their blog. It's called Post Playum, and what they basically do is Dave Mark goes through and he plays games, and when he sees a really good AI action, he kind of remarks on it on the blog. If he sees a not so good one, he remarks on that. So it kind of gives you an idea where they're at. The three I really kind of found interesting all came out of Skyrim. One of the things he really, really liked was the way, the characters you have that back you up. I call them pet characters. Anyways, they will select weapons based on situations. They don't just grab whatever they have or whatever you give them. If they've got a selection of weapons in their pack, they will try to choose the best one for the fight.
I was going to say, if he's praising Skyrim's AI, I'm worried now.
No,
that game is awful with
parts of Skyrim's AI.
Some of the stuff in AI is really, really good. Another one is, he points out, is that the townsfolk, the NPC townfolk will actually interact with something that's different or new around them. Like he was saying, there was a dead frost spider, and like people would walk up to it and look at it and kick it, and a guard knelt down to look at it. It's a little thing, but it's still noticing something different in the game. That, and like he was saying in that discussion was what happens in most games. A dead item just hides there or hides in plain sight. Nobody touches it. Nobody goes near it, and everybody, if they walk to it, they know there's something there, but they'll immediately turn around and walk away and ignore it, as far as an NPC is concerned. So that was another good point of artificial intelligence. Now, on the other side was target prioritization. He was out there, he was fighting, he got accosted by a dragon, and all of a sudden the dragon flew off, and when it landed again, it caught sight of a mammoth and thought the mammoth was more important than him and his cohort. So it started fighting the mammoth, and then all of a sudden 2 wizards came by. Rather than fight the dragon or the mammoth, they decided to fight him, and then there was the AI skeleton that just kind of sat there and moaned and groaned at him. So, just these kind of issues are what AI looks at, and we all know that between the pets and some of a lot of the mobs, it's very scripted without any decision points or any kind of curve justification for what they do. Hopefully they're going to get through all this, or help get through some of this flatness in the game and kind of spice it up for us.
And I mean, also to put it in perspective, I think they also helped with SOE's. I'm assuming EQ Next, because they're really pushing that, dynamic AI.
They're definitely this company is also working with EQ Next.
And I mean, for better or for worse, I'm definitely intrigued by what EQ Next is claiming they're doing with their AI. And if they're even bringing a shred of this to Guild Wars 2, I'm extremely interested from a dynamic event standpoint. I mean, how do you guys feel about this AI?
I completely agree, because just the simple fact that we have dynamic combat means that AI can function a hell of a lot better. The fact that, we don't have tanks that have some magical threat stat that's like, hey, look at me, I mean, it gets to the point where, like, generally speaking, the tank is not the one that is the most threatening. They're a hard-to-kill target. They're not doing much damage. They're not keeping anyone else alive. So in the standard Trinity kind of game, you'd want to either kill the DPS or the healers because they're squishy and they're the ones doing the most damage, so to speak. The healers are keeping people alive. The DPS are doing the most damage to you. The tank is literally the last person you'd want to hit. Granted, there are some threat mechanics in Guild Wars 2. Like, I know there's some target prioritization on people with the most toughness or lowest health or what have you. Yeah. And there are even some fights where you have debuffs where if you have a debuff, you are the target of a given creature. I think that's in the Aether Path for Twilight Arbor. There's like an ooze mechanic, and there's a bouncing buff that goes around. But I just... knowing that they add target prioritization, like if that's a big deal to them, that means that we actually have the ability to look at a fight, and the enemy, the boss, has the chance to look at us and say, hey, that guy right there, he needs to die. And then you and everyone else around you has to either be, hey, over here, and give them a reason to attack you, or you have to defend that guy from whatever mechanics are going to be thrown his way. And to me, that just screams more sensible. Mm-hmm. It just makes so much more sense from an immersion standpoint. I know a lot of people like tout the word immersion, but it's like when the game feels like it's fighting against you, not you're just going through motions, then I think it's a hell of a lot better design. And I am actually going to go on record and agree with Aaron that despite some of the smaller things that you mentioned, because NPC interactions with each other, because Skyrim can run and you don't have to touch anything and the NPCs will interact and actually continue to do stuff, but for the most part the AI in Skyrim is kind of bunk. Mostly because of the target prioritization stuff.
Right. The word you're looking for.
I was going to say, he's not pointing at Skyrim and saying awesome AI, but what he does do is he points out where the AI is doing really good things as far as an AI is concerned, and things that make the game feel better.
What was that the word I was looking for, Aaron? You cut out there a little bit.
Oh, awful. That's the word you're looking for.
I think that was a synonym I spout out there, but hey.
Well, I mean, Roy and Aaron, how do you feel about these kind of AI concepts coming to Guild Wars 2?
I prefer the AIs more than I do the scripted, the kind of scripted movement we have, particularly if they're going to put it into the large events and the player or the seasonal events, because I didn't care for the last season Ender. I did not care for that set of fights, the last two sets of fights actually, because they were so scripted, and the last change to the fight really didn't add anything to make it that different. And we can all disagree or agree on that, that's fine, but if those had some level of AI to them, then it would have been, to me, a lot better, where there was some choice that the AI made to fight differently and to add, to change the way the fight went. I'd have been all for that.
Aaron, what do you feel?
I mean, it's a change that will be good. It's like they're trying to make the game better. At the end of the day, fine.
That's it.
Well, we do know that they're going to have physical copies. You can put that on the box right there. It'll be good.
Physical copies of the AI?
No, of the game, the expansion.
Okay. I was like, I didn't know that came in physical copies.
But I was just thinking about it, and I'm kind of hoping that they have, and it kind of adds a psychological profile to it too, because you could say that the Mordrum husks all behave in a certain manner, and you can probably attribute them more to kind of a zombie style of dealing with stuff as the Mordrum husks. So you either have the ones that throw rocks at you or the ones that punch you. So far, those are really the only ones we've had to fight. So they're pretty much single-minded in what they do. And you could have each of the types of Mordrum just, using Mordrum as our example enemy here, each have their own specific type of behaviors, but they have their AI within that. So they could throw a curveball eventually, say, that crazy Terragriff we fought with the Aspect Masters, and you get a greater Mordrum of whatever you'd want to call it, and suddenly they're behaving differently.
Yeah.
Suddenly they're showing either more intelligence or they're breaking out of their standard behaviors. It feels a lot. It's a more psychological curveball. It gives you that much better. What the hell is this giant boss thing? Why is it coming after me? They're not supposed to do that.
I mean, if you take something like the Mordrum Husk, it's throwing rocks at you, and all of a sudden, it looks out there and it sees 3 people standing around together fighting it. Rather than sitting there and constantly throwing rocks at that group, it has the ability to go, hey, you know what? There's 3 there. They're doing damage. I'm going to run out and I'm going to explode myself on them, and put a debuff on them, and then let the other rock throwers get them.
Well, and I mean, in the end, we're just arguing.
Just to clarify, you're going to explode yourself on them.
Well, I mean, right now we're just arguing.
Explode yourself on them is the phrasing you use.
It remains to be seen, but I mean, we won't know until we get our hands on it. Now, they did say that there is potential for beta testing events for the expansion prior to release. I mean, I think that's a little bit redundant. I don't know if they would do beta tests after release, but go ahead.
So in the interview, Colin says they're going to bring a playable demo to PAX, after which they're going to open up beta testing. That's all he says. So it's all inference that there could potentially be like beta weekends for players. We don't know that for sure yet.
But I mean, if they do open up beta weekends like they have done in the past, I mean, a good way to do that is with a group of people. And I think that takes us to our sponsor, Game Breaker Nation. We're all officers for Game Breaker Nation. 3 of us are for Guild Wars 2 specifically. And guess which one? But anyway, if Game Breaker Nation is not your cup of tea, maybe you're sitting here waiting for the ESO show that's going to be happening later today. Don't worry. We also have Elder Scrolls Online. Game Breaker started their Final Fantasy XIV Reborn back up. We have a Game Breaker Nation community in XIV. We have World of Warcraft, both Horde and Alliance, Elite Dangerous, Star Citizen. I mean, the list just keeps growing. Definitely go over to GameBreakerNation.com and check it out. I mean, if you want to play games with people and not have to stress every time a new game comes out, you'd be a fool not to. I mean, you don't have to do the work. All you have to do is get the game, and the community's there.
Just add water.
Exactly. Just add water. Sure.
Don't pour water under your computers, people. That would be terrible.
But yeah, we have forums there. You can apply to, if you just sign up and get an account, you don't even have to join the guilds. You can still chat on the forums and then make the step towards signing up to individual guilds and being part of those specific communities within, Game Breaker. But like I said, definitely go over, check it out. We have videos of past events, fun things that I think each group is doing. Like I said, just head on over there. I've enjoyed it. Let's move on to story speculation of where we would like the story to go. One thing that they actually did say was with the Heart of Thorns, we were going to find discover what Glint's legacy was. How do you guys? What are you guys interpreting that is?
Okay, so at the end of I don't remember exactly which point it was in the Heart of Thorns announcement, but they mentioned that Glint's legacy, which was given to us at the end of Prophecies, would be revealed in Heart of Thorns. There was a there's a great speculative article on this written by Draxinic from Guildmag, but I'm going to try kind of pull from his theories here. So this isn't my original theory, but it's a good one. So there's the chance that Glint's legacy is not in fact referring to the dragon egg that the Master of Peace had and that Kaith now has. There's also a good chance that it is referring to it, but they specifically say in the PAX announcement that Glint's legacy was revealed at the end of Prophecies. And at the end of Prophecies, we had the Mersat being overrun by the Titans being destroyed by the player, and the Scepter of Ore fading into obscurity on the Ring of Fire Islands with the eruption of Abaddon's mouth. With Glint's eggs in Prophecies, those were revealed about midway through the plot, probably 2/3 of the way through the plot, at the end of the Crystal Desert Chain. But after that, you still had 2 large sections of the plot to go through. So I agree with what Draxinic says in his Guildmag article, that I wouldn't call that the end of the game. So if we take that literally, and not just, what he was saying at PAX might have just been, words. But if we take the meaning of the end of Prophecies as literally, then Glint's legacy couldn't be the dragon egg, could it? It would have to be something to do with the Mersat or the Scepter of Ore. So what
was I remember Glint had her presence in Draknar's Forge. What was that? You had
that was just an image, or like.
Well, that was actually had to do with the Brotherhood. What was it called? The dwarven organization that worshipped Glint. Was it the Brotherhood of the Dragon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it was called. But that was kind of their shrine to Glint, and you could summon her aspect there and stuff. Which, I mean, you could argue that Glint's legacy is the Zephyrites, but the Zephyrites have already been introduced. Now, what I'm thinking is probably likely is that when they said that Glint's legacy that was revealed at the end of Prophecies, I think they meant that loosely, and that they mean the dragon egg. I think it's likely that the dragon egg is going to be what ends up being Glint's legacy, because it's her egg. But there's also a chance that it has something to do with the Mersat, and how Glint kind of manipulated the Mersat into fading into obscurity through her Flameseeker prophecies in Guild Wars 1, and that their presence now in Guild Wars 2 could have been the result of her clever scheming. That's a possibility for what they meant by Glint's legacy. There's also the possibility of the Scepter of Ore coming into play. But.
Speaking of the Mersat, we were kind of playing around with an image that goes back, the Hall of Monuments. I know Aaron's a little against it, but as you can see there, that's actually Eye of the North, and Aaron, I think Aaron was talking about he likes the structure of that one because it kind of does go hand in hand with the description of the Mersat's structures, where they'll go up into the sky. They're more gold-like, similar to the one you see in the photo there. But what you see on the inside, as you progress the stuff that would carry over to Guild Wars 2 type of thing, as you went further into this, what was it, total of 50 points, it would create this image on the background more and more. And you can actually see it's... Well, oh, go ahead.
It actually wasn't tied to the points. It was tied to your kind of big deal rank. Once you got God Walking Amongst Mere Mortals, you would unlock the final iteration.
I always just assumed just because it was... You needed the titles anyway. But as it appeared more and more so, you can we have a picture of it actually progressing. And, I mean, to me, it kind of looks like some form of what we're seeing these supposedly Mersat that we see in the expansion. And if you can see it right there, like from left to right, it's from starting and then finishing. And that final one...
Boy, look at that. I just keep coming back. It doesn't strike me as the Mersat. I could be... I'm kind of leaning towards the Seer and the race of Seers.
There's 2 opposing kind of evidences here. First of all, it's a floating entity, right? So that immediately leads us to believe Mersat. But if you think about the Eye of the North, it's a mysterious ruin that we don't know about. like that we don't know the origins of. Now, in an interview that Guildmag did with Rhys Sosby back in 2010, Rhys Sosby actually stated that the seers have ruins scattered about Tyria, and that we interact with them and see them on a daily basis, but we don't know which ruins are the seer ruins. So there are seer ruins in Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 somewhere. Now, the speculation that this image in the Hall of Monuments is a seer kind of stems from the fact that there is a scrying pool in the middle of the Hall of Monuments. If you've ever been to it in Guild Wars 2, that little slimy pool you swim through, that was a scrying pool that we would use in Eye of the North to look into the future. Now, that would connect it more with seers, wouldn't it? Because they're called seers. Why else would they be called this if they didn't have some sort of ability to see into the future? So the scrying pool would lead us to believe that this is a seer on the thing and that the seers built the Eye of the North. However, if you go back to the picture extra of the building as a whole, you can see that there's this tower above it that stretches way up into the sky. And this is something we see in the Guild Wars manuscripts, which was the game manual for the original Guild Wars games. And it talks about the story of Saul D'Alessio. And when he initially encountered the Mersat and during his exile from Kryta, he saw one of their cities, and he says that one of the characteristics of the buildings in their cities was having towers that stretched up way into the heavens, like into the clouds. So that would lead us to believe that maybe this is a Mersat building. But I know either way, it's definitely a possibility that this is either has something to do with the Mersat or the seers. But I know that John has a theory on this as well.
Well, I would love to get into it, but we do want to hit questions. All I'm going to say is I think we're going to, with the Mersat that we see in the trailer, I always suspected maybe these are higher ranking ones. What if the history books say the seers are and the Mersat are separate races? What if they're just separate factions of a race? Because they both have similar characteristics and qualities. So what if these are like maybe more prophets, like the seers are more prophet-like, whereas the Mersat, maybe the Mersat we saw in Guild Wars 1 are foot soldiers, whereas these ones we see in this trailer that have like the glowing, like skin armor type thing, are these higher ranking, generals.
Like maybe they're different professions of the same race, the same way we can be mesmers and elementalists and things like that. That would make sense.
We all do know that Guild Wars 1 lore has been wrong when it has transitioned to Guild Wars 2.
I hate that so much that they just throw that out the window. They're like, well, this doesn't work anymore, so that was wrong. They do that a lot.
I do like that they said it was based on human history, which even in real life we get it wrong. But let's...
My thing with the point you're bringing up is they're probably really similar because I kind of take them, and I know you guys don't agree with this at all, but to me, those are the races that were, the original races that were from this world. Everybody else is a transplant. Everybody else is somebody that came along after. I'm not even sure if we know the Char were actually from here, if they were moved in and put into this planet. To me, the similarity between the two races of the Mersat and the Seers really comes into that they were actually from and of this world, and everybody else kind of came later is not.
Well, so, as far as we know, I mean, they could very well say, hey, last iteration of the gods brought them in.
But so the similarity could just be being raised up from raised up. What am I saying? Evolution brought these two species to a similar place because they were from the planet rather than
conversion evolution.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just for the record, I think that the Mersat, or not the Mersat, that the floating glowy entities we see in the Heart of Thorns trailers, I think those are Mersat. I think they will be.
Yeah, I think all signs point to it, but nothing is 100% confirmed.
Nothing is confirmed. So when you see people bandying that about, just remember it's not confirmed.
Though I was going to say, if you want to use hashtag Talking Skritt and send us a question using the word Mersat, we'll probably think you're talking about the ones in those videos. But let's see if the ones that are up there, because we do have Twitter questions. So, like I said, send your questions to hashtag Talking Skritt. It's the show title. So, which one of the hosts is the skrittiest Skritt? Well, I think that's no competition.
That's
I mean,
totally
do we
Roy.
even want to vote?
Well, it depends on what they're meaning. If they mean in real life, then it's Roy. But if they mean in game, I think Deo's our resident hoarder. He's the one that hoards all the shinies.
Yeah, no, you've got a point.
In terms of I know Roy's quite a bit of a hoarder as well, but I think Deo's got him beat in the hoarding department in game.
Well,
Yeah,
think
Dale
it's-
can pull stuff out that. Well, I don't know. He's cleaned out some.
I think you're just saying that just because I don't want to be a Skritt.
all I know is when they announced the whole collection stuff, Roy went out preemptively to get all of the junk items for the honorary Skritt title.
I had the honorary Skritt title in 48 hours.
Yeah, to be fair, I want my shinies to have value. He's collecting shiny junk. So
Yeah,
Hey,
probably got to give the title to Roy.
shinies, yeah.
yeah, so I think on both
All I
accounts
would
it's
say
forward.
is, if they came out with a Skritt race, I would delete every one of my characters, start over, and they would all be Skritts.
Yes, Deo is the most quaggan, chat says.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Deo is the most quaggan.
It's true.
Well, you know what they say, you are what you eat.
He's eating enough. He's what he eats, right?
I don't want to be a Skritt or a Quaggin.
You're already a Norn, you can't change that.
Exactly. But like I said, if you have any questions, even who is the most skrittiest of Skritt possible, send it over to hashtag Talking Skritt. But we're running out of time very quickly as always. We would love to talk more about lore. Tune in live. We always answer questions from chat. But as for our outro, Jim, where can you be found on the internet?
I can be found on Twitter at MelthanusMMO.
Aaron, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at Twitter at Guild Wars Monk, and I also write over at Guild Mag. I just published an article last week, so go there, find that, read things.
Yay.
Roy, where can they find you besides Elite Dangerous?
You can find me in the Elite Dangerous forums, but you can also find me at Twitter at Roby62 and Schadenfreude Productions on YouTube.
And you can find me at simply_Deo on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. And for people watching the VOD, make sure to tune in live Saturdays at 1 p.m. Pacific and 4 p.m. Eastern. I think we were 5 minutes late. Apologies on that one. We had last-minute technical difficulties, but we were up an hour early, so I think it balances out. And if you want to watch this again, if you're here live, or want to leave a comment, head over to our YouTube channel at Talking Skritt. And yeah, and
Changed it a couple times.
yeah, it gets complicated after a while.
That name change, it's just, we're integrating it.
And you can find us all at GameBreakerNation.com. Like I said before, we're not just a Guild Wars 2 guild. We have Final Fantasy XIV, Elder Scrolls Online, World of Warcraft, League of Legends, Star Citizen, a Minecraft community. I think I named different things each time. So, like I said, there's just so many games. We just keep growing. And like I said, these are the games we just support. I've seen people play H1Z1. I don't even know some of the new games because I just hit the Guild Wars 2.
We have League of Legends players.
Yeah, League of Legends.
Yeah.
League of Legends. We have a few people that play Smite and a few people that play Dota, I think, as well. So
See, look, the list is just tremendous. So, once again, head on over to GameBreakerNation.com, sign on up, and as always, we will see you in the game. Good night, everybody.
good night, everybody.
Oh.